Dude, well played. That's a solid 4 for your transition. Ice cold, the Golden State Warriors, and a pretty god-awful way to come out of the All-Star break. Just a flaccid performance, and I think you said it perfectly in our show thread between you and I when you said it's one thing to be bad, but when you're bad and dull, that's the worst thing you can be, and that game last night was exactly that.
Yeah, it was like sometimes you have a bad team. If you're a Rockets fan, okay, the Warriors play the Rockets tonight. You can listen right here on 95.7 The Game, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, don't miss a dribble.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a Rockets fan, that's a bad team, but you're watching them and you're going, okay, I get now Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. not playing tonight, but typically you're getting those guys. Those are your foundational pieces moving forward. The Pistons, Jalen Duren and James Wiseman and Cade Cunningham before he got hurt. Like you see, okay, this is a bad team, but you're seeing the development. This Warriors team is not playing well right now, and there's nothing. I said this. There's no more timelines. There's no timeline right now. There's not a timeline where they finish with a title this year, and then there's no timeline moving forward. If Steph, Clay, and Draymond quit tomorrow, they're not. But if there would be nothing for the Warriors moving forward, and they're in the worst place you can be.
Which is kind of stuck in the middle right now, and they're the 10 seed, and they are 29-30, and they're coming off a 124-111 loss against the Lakers. And, to your point about this year, and you've got 23 games left to go. Steph Curry going to be out for the next 4 or 5 at least. We don't know about Andrew Wiggins. Where are you in terms of, can this team even come back and throw the switch if they get their guys back?
So let's talk about the switch. We need to do this. Shout out Nintendo.
Thank you. That's a 4.
So I think they, when you say flip the switch, the switch is just getting healthy. And then how do they play once they're healthy? Because last year, you were able to fall back on when they were struggling toward the end of the year. They won their last 5, but up to that point, they really struggled through March. And you went, okay, but look at how good they were at the beginning of the year. They're coasting into the playoffs. Right now, this team is falling, somersaulting, stumbling into the playoffs.
Free falling, Tom Petty.
Possibly, very good for. Possibly the play in. And it's like, oh, well, the switch. And it's like, dude, the switch was last year's team. That's what you're falling back on, is what happened a year ago. And you just can't do that. And that's why when you ask me, is there a switch? I just don't think the switch exists. It's just get your guys back and see what happens.
And hope for the best. And, Steph Curry, we don't know exactly when he will come back, but we do know the Warriors have a game tonight. He won't play in that game. The expectation is he'll be out at least another week, probably 5 games or 6 games. Can you tread water to the point where when Steph comes back with maybe 15 or 16 games left to go, you can still finish up into a spot where you get into that play-in game? Or something I threw out on Twitter, and I'd love to hear fans' thoughts, 888-957-9570, what you think about what the Warriors are better off doing. Because right now, at 19-1 odds, the implied odds are you have a 4% chance of winning the NBA championship. And I think that's pretty accurate. It's pretty fair. It might be a little bit higher than that because you do have the championship pedigree, but a team in the 10 seed right now, you would have to beat Utah. You'd have to go to Minnesota or New Orleans, whoever lost that game. You'd have to win that game and then go into a 1-8 playoff against Denver, win that series, and then go up against either Memphis or Dallas, the Kings or the Clippers, win that series, and then beat another one of those aforementioned teams, win that series, and then go up against Boston, Milwaukee, or the don't overlook us Philadelphia 76ers and win that series. So a 4% chance that you win the NBA title, which is not great. Mm-hmm. Certainly last year as a 3 seed, you had much better odds, a much better chance. Or right now you finish up the year as the 10 seed, maybe you're the 11 seed, and you go into the lottery, and you've got a 4% chance of getting a top 4 pick. Which would you rather have if you're the Golden State Warriors? 888-957-9570. And I know part of this is the knowledge of what this team has done with young players. And they have not necessarily developed young players. They haven't played the young players. And that's why last night I sent you this text right before I went to sleep. I was kind of digging that fourth quarter lineup with PBJ and Moses Moody got to play and all the rest of them.
So that's where I think your choice here between 4% chance to win the title or your 4% chance to get a top 4 pick.
Right.
That to me, like the people on either side of that, you're making a long-term choice when you pick there. Because you have to assume that if they get a top 4 pick, let's just say they do. Let's say they get the number 3 pick. You have to assume that player is not going to contribute next year if they're trying to win a title, just based on the long history we have of this team with young players. So you're effectively saying, I would rather take a young player and punt. Like, the title stuff is over. Let's fire up this new timeline and get ready for the post-Curry, Thompson, Green era. That's what you're saying with that, to me.
Well, and also you're saying probably the post-Steve Kerr era in terms of, if you're going to look for a new GM and the GM is unsigned, if the head coach would be really unhappy with the GM leaving, maybe the head coach, who has one more year, might also leave. So this would definitely spin forward the rebuild for what the Golden State Warriors are going to eventually go through anyway, because we know that Steph, Clay, and Dre aren't going to be at the top of their game forever. And you might be able to argue that the drop-off has already happened. Steph Curry is unable to stay healthy. The injury has cost him a critical month. Draymond Green is not the same productive player he was. Klay Thompson, while he's come back and looked good on offense, defensively, not quite there. I do want to shout out Ernie Chavez on YouTube. He paid $2 to say that they're stuck in the meda. And that's a shout out to the Jolo and Dibs days when Lorenzo Neal would call Alameda the meda. So the question of where are the Warriors? They're not stuck in the middle. They're stuck in the meda.
It's a good uptick. Yeah,
thank you.
They are, and that's the worst place to be. Like, in that limbo of,
and you can get stuck in the meda, by the way, when there's a boat coming through and the drawbridges go up. Totally. I don't know if you've ever been stuck in the meda. Dude, it's brutal. You might sit there for 10 minutes because they have drawbridges. There are 3 drawbridges. There's a tunnel, and then at the south end of town by the Coliseum, you can take Doolittle down by the airport, and you can get across that way. But if you're in like Island proper, Alameda, and you get stuck with the drawbridge up, you can be stuck in the meda.
There's worse places. There's worse places to be stuck. Great beer in the meda.
Yes, Alameda Beer Works and Faction. Shout out Faction.
I don't think Faction has ever missed.
Faction's undefeated.
Faction's very, very good, and so is Almanac. Almanac also undefeated. I've never had a bad beer at Almanac.
Yeah, we can stick with Faction. I know the owners of Faction. Good people.
Oh, big Faction guy.
Shout out Roger and Claudia.
Undefeated Faction as well.
No doubt. There's action at Faction, too, by the way.
All right, you guys need to relax.
What? What's wrong with you, Spadoni?
Cut
action
that.
with Faction.
Yeah,
Come
exactly. On. No, there's action at Faction. Just because you're a married man and you're locked in on your situation, if you're a single man, there's action at Faction. That's all I'm going to say. Come springtime on the outdoor patio. Hi, I'm Dan Dibley. Exactly. Anyway, 888-957-9570. Is it over? And I'm looking at the Kyle Mattson notes on the sheet, and the first line item, is this team done?
Yeah.
So let's start there. Are they done?
I don't think they're done as long as there's this Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins GP2 possibility. Like, I'm not going to, because when I decide a team is done, I'm an A's fan. The A's last year, right around May. No, it was about June. It was okay, they're. I'm no longer going to make a point. I'll turn it on if I'm around, but I'm not going to make it a point to be hey, can we do dinner in tonight? There's a game on, or can we go to a place where the game's going to be on? I'm not going to make it a point to make sure I'm watching 9 innings of baseball every single night. So when I'm done with a team, that's how it gets. I'm going to tune into the Warriors. A, because it's my job. But B, I'm not done with this team yet. This iteration of them would be done. If you told me, hey, no Steph, Wiggins, or GPG the rest of the way, fine. But that's every team in the league, if you're missing your top 2 players, is probably done. So it's not a Warriors problem.
Well, I don't know if Wiggins is necessarily a top 2 player. He hasn't been this year.
He was the second best player on their title team.
Last year, in the playoffs. He wasn't all year.
Right, but he would have to be again this year.
Exactly. He would have to be the Wiggins that we saw last May and June in order for this team to not be, quote, done. But let's start with the back end of what you said with GP2.
Sure.
I don't think that there's any indication that GP2 plays this year at all. All I'm getting the sense of is he's injured and he's wearing a Dodger hat. That's the only GP2 that I'm getting. And I don't know if you saw that yesterday.
I didn't. That's
GP2
a tough look.
Rocking a Dodger hat. Yeah.
In LA?
Yes. I mean, how do you go from fan favorite as fast as possible? You show up injured and you start wearing Dodger gear. That's
like
not
GP
great.
Boo.
Yeah, that's a 2.
Yeah, no. That's
put
really
the 2
bad.
in GP2.
Yeah.
So I don't know if GP2.
Thank you, Steiny.
They said he'd be out for a month, which puts that at the end of March at the earliest. At that point, this whole thing might be done.
Right.
Andrew Wiggins is really the puzzle for me because we don't know what the nature of his personal leave is. And if it's something really serious, he may not be back this week. He may not be back next week. We just don't know what that is. We do know that Steph Curry is going to be out for at least another week, maybe 2 weeks. And at that point, the season might be done.
Yeah, but
Is this team done?
But right now, the answer is no for me. Because of what I said in the changeover, which you can listen to 8:57-ish to 9:27-ish.
Thank you.
But as long as there's the possibility that you're going to have Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins and GP2 in the rotation, like I'm not going to say they're done because of what we saw last year. How many times last year did I sit there in our group chat like, this team isn't good enough? I don't think this team's good enough.
Yeah, you and I both. I admit it.
And they get to the postseason and they wax the Nuggets and they beat Denver and they get past Memphis.
Survive Memphis.
And then they smoke
Humiliated Dallas.
and then flip the switch against Boston after they were down 2-1 and won the title. So I will never again, as long as there's a possibility that Steph Curry is in the lineup, call the Warriors done. But it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time believing, and we can go through the schedule if you want, I have a hard time believing that this iteration of the Warriors, with no Steph and with no Andrew Wiggins, is going to win any games. Like, they're going to win some, but like...
They got 23 to go, and
Okay.
I was saying yesterday with Mark that 41-41 gets you into the ins. Not necessarily the offs, but 41-41, you're a play-in team.
Okay.
I think 40-42 also might be good enough to get you in the play-in. 39-43 is where it might be difficult for you to get in. But right now you're 29-30. You've got 23 games left to go. If you go 11-12, that might be good enough to get you into the play-in tournament. And at that point, to your scenario, if GP2 has been back for 2 weeks, if Wiggins is able to work through his personal issues off the court, if Steph Curry has 3 or 4 weeks under his belt, it's tough to discount this team from, at that point, being able to make some noise in the Western Conference.
They would just need to look dramatically different.
Right.
And it's like with the sample size we have with this group of players, I can't logically, outside of like, well, maybe, like that's fine. And if that's how you operate, go for it. But that's all I've got. I can't say, well, okay, Dante DiVincenzo is going to start shooting it better and Clay is just going to start playing better and Draymond's going to start playing better and everything's going to be fine. Like, okay, but let's say that the Warriors are without Steph and Andrew Wiggins until March 7. Okay? So that's a 6-game stretch.
Right.
Are you confident they're beating Houston?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Houston wants to lose.
Okay, so you're confident Houston is losing tonight?
Yes.
So let's
no
call
matter,
it a dub.
even if Klay Thompson sits and you go, even if Draymond Green sits, if Draymond, Wiggins, Steph, and Klay are all out, I'm betting the Warriors beat Houston. Absolutely.
Okay, what about Minnesota on Sunday? Minnesota at Chase Center.
You'd get Klay back in this scenario if he sits. I like their chances of beating Minnesota.
Okay, so you're 2-0.
Right.
That would be enormous. That would be game-changing for me. Portland, the following Tuesday at home.
I think they split Portland and Minnesota. So, and Portland's in a situation where if you beat Houston, you should. If you beat Minnesota, you could. Portland is trending toward being Houston-esque, not only because, I mean, Dame Lillard coming out of the break didn't even want to play last night. Portland, to me, feels like they're starting to go into tank mode.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not 100% sure I agree, but I do agree that Minnesota and Portland, I think, are going split. Whichever, pick a win or loss.
Right. So you're 2-1. You lose to the Clippers. You're 2-2.
Okay.
Then you got New Orleans and the Lakers in 2 games in 3 nights. If you split those, you go 3-3 over the next 6. So now you're 32-33. Steph comes back for the game at OKC.
Yes.
And that's where you start to make your final push.
If Steph's back, if they go 3-3 and get Steph back for that game at OKC, I will feel so much different about this team.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't be done with them. That's why I can't say this team's done, no chance. Because everything you just laid out, would I bet on them going 3-3? No, not necessarily. Not based on what we saw last night. But
you probably think it's more likely they go 2-4.
Yeah. I think if somebody said you can have 2-4, right now I'd probably take it.
Yeah, see, not me. Not me, because you got Houston wants to lose. I think Portland is in lightweight tank mode, and New Orleans is not the same New Orleans team that they were back in December or January. 888-957-9570. Is this team done? Let's go to Doug in Berkeley. Doug, what are you doing?
Hi, Doug.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. What's going on, Doug?
Good to hear you talk. Yeah.
It's good to be talking. What's on your mind, Doug?
You guys are just like all of us. We're fans. But if you could hear yourself, there's one too many ifs. No, there's 10 too many ifs. No, there have been 10 too many ifs all season. Even if those guys come back, you've seen who we are. Ernie Johnson had an interesting statistic that he shouted out last night, that since KD left, we actually have lost 6 more games than we've won, and that's with the whole team and including the season that we won without him. This year, the team is not that good. We should have rebuilt like we were set up to do. There's no shame in not winning every year, and we'd have been loaded and ready to go next year. We're not doing it this year. I'm still a fan, but you got to face reality.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the phone call. And it's interesting about the notion of they should have rebuilt, because they have tried to rebuild in that they drafted Kuminga, they drafted Wiseman, they drafted Moody, and they paid Jordan Poole. That, to me, is a rebuild. Yet you see the way they've proceeded as an on-court product. Steve Kerr no longer plays Moses Moody. Moses Moody is completely shot from a confidence standpoint. James Wiseman played for Detroit last night. He had 8 points and 10 rebounds.
28 minutes.
Yeah, so James Wiseman is doing his thing in the Motor City. Jonathan Kuminga is not getting consistent, we totally believe in you kind of minutes. He's starting to get there. Jordan Poole, a hot mess is probably too strong for Jordan Poole, but he has
hot mess tendencies.
He sure does. The amount of times he falls over, he's a human bowling pin.
It's unbelievable. It is. I have never seen an NBA player fall over more than Jordan Poole does.
Without flopping.
No flop.
He just falls.
He just goes down. Like his center of gravity is off. It's just, I don't know if it's the way he dribbles or the way he tries to cut or whatever it is. He spends more time on the floor than any player in the NBA.
That one last night where Reeves picked it up, where he just fell. It was like Benny running on the sidewalk where you know he's just going to eat it. That's what it looked like last night, like a toddler.
And much like what happened last night when Benny falls, I'm sure you immediately move in and pick up the ball and go the other way. You don't stop to scoop.
Yeah, come on.
It's domination
at the
Spadoni house.
Ice up.
Dude, ice up, son. Especially the father-daughter dynamic and the mother-son dynamic. I can already see it in your household.
Jade's been low-key roasting me. She's like, you give way too much love to baby Nora right now. I was like, she's my baby girl. What do you want from me?
No doubt.
Dude, he said, well, you have a
girl
son.
dad.
I was like, oh, yeah.
Father-daughter, mother-son. I could see it just in the Instagram photos alone, the way you cradle that lovely, lovely baby girl. Kyle, are you familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross at all?
I've heard the name.
She is famous for her book in 1969, On Death and Dying, where she lays out the 5 stages of grief.
Ah, yes, okay.
I feel like that we as Warrior fans are in stage 1 right now, which is denial. In this stage, individuals believe the diagnosis is somehow mistaken and they cling to a false, preferable reality. Right now, the Warriors are 29-30. The diagnosis is that they have a 4% chance of surviving. The diagnosis is grim for this year's Warriors team, yet all of us Warriors fans are dealing with denial. We believe that the diagnosis is somehow mistaken. If Steph comes back, if we can just get Wiggins, if Clay can stay hot, if Jordan Poole can stay on those two beautiful feet, maybe they're wrong. We're in denial, Kyle.
What's the second stage? Anger?
Anger, yes.
I live in a constant state between denial and anger.
And a lot of fans are already there, which is it's not fair. Who is to blame? Why would this happen? Some lash out at the medical staff, the coaching staff, and other family. I
was going to say
GM.
Anthony Lamb.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah, we all lash out at Anthony Lamb. How come you're not better? He's a two-way player.
Right.
And, Ty Jerome, we all want to rip Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome's a two-way player. And he's your seventh man.
I love the Warriors.
That's a problem.
I need to say,
thank you.
I love the Warriors. And I want them to win the championship every single year. Every time the ball goes up for the opening tip, I'm like, hell yeah, I hope they win. I want them to win.
Yeah.
I want them to win so bad. But last year or this year, we have to look at reality and you have to say, how many title teams are navigating the games played of two-way players?
Right.
Because they've played so many games.
And it's critical, by the way.
Yeah, like they
navigate these two guys.
Right. Like this is a problem that the coaching staff has to deal with. No other contender is doing that. No other contender has ever done that and been like, oh gosh, okay, let's see. Can we get PBJ some minutes tonight? Because we got to hit Anthony Lamb. We're going to need him in this game. In this game, he only gets 50. That's just not... Contenders look at the buyout market, not, hey, can this two-way guy eat a 15th spot? Is that what we should do? Like that was sign number one that there was a massive, massive problem with this team.
And you would hope at the start of the year that you wouldn't have to rely on these players. You would hope that they were going to be players 11 and 12, but in fact, they've been players 7 and 8 at times, 8 and 9 at other times. And so we're all left with the same sort of feeling, which is you look around the Western Conference. Look at the Lakers last night, how deep they are and how deep they are with players they added. D'Angelo Russell didn't even really play. He played about 8 minutes and got hurt. But Rui Hachimura, a guy that they picked up, came in and balled out. And they've got all kinds of veterans. They have a deep team. And you look at the Warriors and it's, man, I hope Ty Jerome and, Anthony Lamb can come in and play really well. Jerome played 30 minutes last night. Your two-way player, and Lamb played 24 minutes. And I know a lot of that was garbage time after the game was decided, but you're in a situation where you're relying on these two-way guys to be key cogs, and that's not a winning formula.
Can I put a pin in the complaining for a minute? Because I'm here to complain.
Well, we're here till noon.
Okay, good. How much time we got, Spino?
Yeah, exactly. We got about a minute here.
I want to shout out Kevon Looney before this segment's over.
Sure.
Kevon Looney last night.
Double-double.
10 points, 15 points. Busting his ass in a game that I think everybody listening, right about 4 minutes into the third quarter went, all right, night. This one's done. But there was Kevon Looney just trying to drag him back into it single-handedly. He deserves and gets all the credit in the world for me. One of my favorite Bay Area athletes.
No doubt, one of my favorite Warriors of all time.
Yes.
A little bit of the Larry Smith vibes for me. Mr. Mean, who was an absolute fan favorite. Kevon Looney gets lost amongst all the superstars on this team, but he's absolutely a fan favorite.